Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivastava Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Advaita Gadadhara Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Om Vishnupada Paramansa Parikajukacharya Ashto Tarasita Shri Srimad AC Bhakti Vedanta Swami Raj Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Sakaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sham Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadev Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Ki Jai Gangamai Ki Jai Jamunamai Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande.
Hari Haribol. Thank you so much, Maharaj, and thank you, Vasudev Prabhu and Mrs. Vasudev Prabhu for the kirtan, and welcome to everyone to Srimad Bhagavatam class with His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami. It is Monday, July 31st, 2023, and we are starting tonight in the third canto, chapter 21, and the verse number is not at my fingertips, but
21, I think.
Jai. So looking forward to hearing everyone's comments and questions, and thank you for being with us once again, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Kendra Prabhu. And thank you, Vasudev and company. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Tam Tvanubhutyo Padata Kriyartam Swamayaya Vartata Lokatantram Namamya Bhikshnam Namaniya Pada Surojam Alpiyasi Kamavarsham. I continuously offer my respectful obeisances unto your lotus feet, of which it is worthy to take shelter, because you shower all benedictions on the insignificant, to give all living entities detachment from fruitive activity by realizing you. You have expanded these material worlds by your own energy. Purport. Everyone, therefore, who whether he desires material enjoyment, liberation, or the transcendental loving service of the Lord, should engage himself offering obeisances unto the Supreme Lord, because the Lord can award everyone his desired benediction. In Bhagavad Gita, the Lord affirms, Yayata mam prapadyante. Anyone who desires to be a successful enjoyer in this material world is awarded that benediction by the Lord. Anyone who wants to be liberated from the entanglement of this material world is given liberation by the Lord. And anyone who desires to constantly engage in his service in full Krishna consciousness is awarded that benediction by the Lord. For material enjoyment, he has prescribed so many ritualistic sacrificial performances in the Vedas, and thus people may take advantage of those instructions and enjoy material life in higher planets or in a noble aristocratic family. These processes are mentioned in the Vedas, and one can take advantage of them. It is similar with those who want to be liberated from this material world. Om Jnana Timirandhasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Sthapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupakoda Mahyam Dadati Shapatantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jatapadakamala Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Shagrajatam Shahagana Raganatan Vitam Stam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savatutam Harijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Shahagana Lodita Sri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kam Shana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Krisha Bhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Puri Priye Vancha Kolpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindho Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Well, I had no special need to stop there, so I'm going to continue. Unless one is disgusted with the enjoyment of this material world, he cannot aspire for liberation. Liberation is for one who is disgusted with material enjoyment. Vedanta Sutra there says, therefore, Tato Brahmajigyasa. Tato Brahmajigyasa. Those who have given up the attempt to be happy in this material world can inquire about the absolute truth. For those who want to know the absolute truth, the Vedanta Sutra is available, as is Srimad Bhagavatam, the actual explanation of Vedanta Sutra. Since Bhagavad Gita is also Vedanta Sutra, By understanding Srimad Bhagavatam, Vedanta Sutra, or Bhagavad Gita, one can obtain real knowledge. When one obtains real knowledge, he becomes theoretically one with the Supreme. And when he actually begins the service of Brahma or Krishna consciousness, he is not only liberated, but situated in his spiritual life. Similarly, for those who want to lord it over material nature, there are so many departments of material enjoyment. Material knowledge and material science are available, and the Lord provides for persons who want to enjoy them. The conclusion is that one should worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead for any benediction. The word Kamavarsha is very significant, for it indicates that he satisfies the desires of anyone who approaches him. But one who sincerely loves Krishna and yet wants material enjoyment is in perplexity. Krishna, being very kind toward him, gives him an opportunity to engage in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. And so he gradually forgets the hallucination. Before I miss it, it's interesting that Prabhupada mentions material knowledge and material science as objects of enjoyment. For those who are on the gross bodily platform, there's gross sense gratification. And for those who are more in their heads, as we say, there's subtle enjoyment in the form of science, knowledge, literature, all sorts of stuff to gratify the subtle senses. So these things are available. Sense gratification is available, and it's provided by the Lord. The Lord provides material enjoyment, but the idea is tam anubhutya uparata kiyartam. The material enjoyment is provided so that we'll become disgusted with it. All right, have your material enjoyment. But what happens with material enjoyment after a while? It's like, becomes tiresome, it becomes disgusting, it becomes hellish. And so an intelligent person thinks, what is this material enjoyment? Let me give it up. Then Brahma Jigyasa, let me inquire about some higher objective. That's the real person, real purpose. So Maya Vartata Lokatantra. By the Lord's own energy, he provides material enjoyment, or he provides liberation, or he provides Krishna consciousness. So, Yeyatam Mam Prapadyante Tamastataya Vipachamya. Namaniya, the Lord is worthy of worship, worthy of being offered obeisances, or specifically, Pada Sarojam, the Lord's lotus feet are worthy of worship. And Alpiyasi Kama Varsha, a Lord is, Varsha means he showers upon us whatever we desire. The Lord is very kind. That will be discussed more in the coming verse. Kama Varsha. There's no need to approach anyone else because Krishna can pour on us, shower on us, whatever we need. And the Kardamuni says, in effect, that I'm a very insignificant person because my desires are very, what's the word? Limited. They're paltry desires. I don't desire the higher achievements in life. I'm desiring some sense gratification. All right, are there some questions or comments? Yes, Kendra.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. There's one line in the purport that I was thinking of: unless one is disgusted with the enjoyment of this material world, he cannot aspire for liberation. I was thinking how rare it is to find someone who's persistently disgusted
Mhm.
the enjoyment of the material world as a character trait, not just, oh, that attempt at sense gratification failed on Monday and I'm disgusted with material enjoyment. But on Tuesday, I'm going to approach the material nature from a different angle and maybe it'll work then.
Mhm. Yeah. Or we're disgusted with some enjoyment. Other enjoyment may be a different story. Yeah. Finally, one has to become disgusted. What is this business of material enjoyment? Otherwise, we see the materialists, they're like excited by the prospect of material enjoyment. They're enlivened by the idea of they're looking forward to the weekend when they're going to enjoy it, looking forward to. So this is their misfortune. Thank you. Something else? Okay. Yes.
Also said in the Bhakti Swami, the Sindhu, by Rupa Goswami, is quoting from the 11th canto, that the qualification for bhakti is that one should neither be too disgusted nor too attached.
Yeah, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, one should be neither too disgusted or too attached. The only to be renounced will not be favorable. We have to be attracted to Krishna. Would you say that that's the import there?
Yeah.
If we're only disgusted by the material world, is so disgusting, everything is disgusting, then we're still like absorbed in the material world, how disgusting it is, so that kind of preoccupation is not so favorable. But to be sufficiently disgusted, that one thinks, what is the use of this? Let me become Krishna conscious. Anything else? Hold on, my comments got turned off because I don't know why. Let's see. Anantashesh says, for the materialists, all the big structures that humans build are so attractive. I wonder about that. They're really not all that attractive. There are so many of the, you're here in New York, and it's like, no, the buildings are not very attractive. They're oppressive, even. They're so, first of all, they have a sameness about them. They have a giganticness. They have a coldness. They're too big, really. Human beings can't really be happy surrounded by enormous towers blocking the sky in every direction. So I don't know that the big structures are so attractive. We build something that's perhaps, it's not even there. Even now, generally the buildings, they don't put a lot into making them attractive. You know, it's like my sister was a little bit, she's involved with architecture. And she was telling me that the Freedom Tower, I think they call it here in New York City, they had a competition to submit best design. And the design that won the competition was really appreciated by many architects and critics as being super excellent. But they chose another one because it gave them, more square feet, more, they could monetize it better. So these buildings now, especially, they're, attractive. They're just for profit and nothing more. If you look at the older buildings, they're a little more attractive. London's the same way. Any building that's been built in the last 60 years or something is just junk, really junk, practically all of them. And you have to go to the older buildings. But that's just a superficial comment. Attractive or not attractive, they're all products of the illusory energy. In one sense, it's better that the buildings are so unattractive. An intelligent person will think, what is this? It's just hellish. And so they write books like The Concrete Jungle and so on. Saraswati says, it is stated that those who aspire for bhakti but are still distracted with material enjoyment are in perplexity. There's an internal war and turmoil going on with this pull or push from Maya on the conditioned souls. And so only Krishna can help them break the hallucinations which seem impossible to break for the conditioned soul by his own efforts. Many times it feels like a losing battle against Maya. Yes, it feels like that, but the devotee who takes shelter of Krishna, Mami Viye Prapadyante, Maya me tam tarantite, by our own efforts, we're sometimes pushed, we're sometimes pulled, we're sometimes attracted, we're sometimes distracted. Therefore, just trying to become detached or averse to Maya will not be enough. We need to be attracted to Krishna. Bhumi mentions that King Charles once called modern buildings in London carbuncles. Yes, we agree with the king. Anything else? Rishiruvacha Vichyavylikam Panutob Janapas Tam Apapashe Pachasamratena Suparna Paksho Parirochamana Prema Smitod Vikshana Vibramad Pru. Maitreya resumed, sincerely extolled in these words, Lord Vishnu, shining very beautifully on the shoulders of Garuda, replied with words as sweet as nectar. His eyebrows moved gracefully as he looked at the sage with a smile full of affection. Purport. The word Vachasamratena is significant. Whenever the Lord speaks, he speaks from the transcendental world. He does not speak from the material world. Since he is transcendental, his speech is also transcendental, as is his activity. Everything in relation to him is transcendental. The word Amrita refers to one who does not meet with death. The words and activities of the Lord are deathless. Therefore, they are not manufactured of this material world. The sound of this material world and that of the spiritual world are completely different. The sound of the spiritual world is nectarian and eternal, whereas the sound of the material world is hackneyed and subject to end. The sound of the holy name, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, everlastingly increases the enthusiasm of the chanter. If one repeats monotonous material words, he will feel exhausted. But if he chants Hare Krishna 24 hours a day, he will never feel exhausted. Rather, he will feel encouraged to continue chanting more and more. When the Lord replied to the sage Kardama, the word Vachasamritena is specifically mentioned, since he spoke from the transcendental world. He replied in transcendental words, and when he spoke, his eyebrows moved with great affection. When a devotee praises the glories of the Lord is very satisfied, and he bestows his transcendental benediction upon the devotee without reservation, because he's always causelessly merciful toward his devotee. So we have Vachasamritena by words which are deathless, which are transcendental, which are coming from the spiritual world. The Advag Visargo, that's mentioned in first canto. The sound vibration for the crows and the sound vibration for the swans. So the words of the Lord are nectarian, and that's right. Yes, they're nectarian, transcendental words, and the Lord was also Premasmitod Vikshana. He was glancing at the sage, looking at the sage with Premasmita, smiles of love, moving his eyebrows with also transcendental affection, gracefully moving. So how wonderful. The Lord is sitting on Garuda, shining and responding with these nectarian words. So how fortunate. It's not just an ordinary conversation. We're sitting in a living room somewhere, and somebody says something, somebody else says something. What everybody says is basically rubbish, and who cares? But here's the Lord sitting on the back of Garuda and smiling with love for Kardamuni and speaking such nectarian words. So how blessed Kardamuni is. Now there's some. Oops. Mukesh says, here Prabhupada mentions if one chants Hare Krishna 24 hours a day, he will never get exhausted. Should we understand that this process of chanting and goal of chanting are the same? getting transcendental loving service of chanting the holy name relentlessly, eternally. Yes, that's there. That the one time in an airport in New York, one journalist was following Prabhupada, and he asked Prabhupada what would be the result of this chanting. And Prabhupada said, chanting? Chanting. And the result of the chanting will be more chanting. So that's eternal. The Hare Krishna sound is on the eternal platform. So in the spiritual world also this goes on. The devotees are chanting the glories of the Lord, the pastimes of the Lord, the names of the Lord, and feeling transcendental ecstasy. So the result of chanting, so in that sense, yes, the process and the goal are the same. Yes. And the devotees, by chanting, they want to go on chanting. Rupa Goswami wishes that he had thousands of tongues and thousands of ears to chant and hear the holy name. Anything else, Basudeva? Anyone else? Sri Bhagavan Vacha Iditva Tavachaityam Me Udaiva Samayojitat Yadartam Atma Niyamais Tvayavaham Samarchitaha. Supreme Lord said, having come to know what was in your mind, I have already arranged for that for which you have worshipped me well, through your mental and sensory discipline. Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, in his Paramatma feature, is situated in everyone's heart. He knows, therefore, past, present, and future of every individual person, as well as his desires, activities, and everything about him. It is stated in Bhagavad Gita that he's seated in the heart. Just thinking, we have the Lord who knows everything about the desires, the activities, everything about the living entity. And in the perverted reflection, we have Google or the CIA that also seeks to know everything about the activities and desires of the living entity. But their desire is how to exploit us, how to control us, how to lord it over us, how to extract something from us. And the Lord's desire is how to give good fortune to everyone, and especially to the devotee. It is stated in Bhagavad Gita that he's seated in the heart as a witness. The personality of Godhead knew the heart's desire of Kardamuni, and he'd already arranged for the fulfillment of his desires. He never disappoints a sincere devotee, regardless of what he wants, but he never allows anything which will be detrimental to the individual's devotional service. But Chaityam means the heart of the living entity is the mind, the heart, Chaityam. Chitete Guriyaka. Viditva, he knows, Chaityam. Buddha, even before Kardamuni asked, the Lord knew what his desires were and had already arranged Samayoji. It had already been arranged. Yadartam Atmaniyama, you, Tvaya, You'd undergone austerities, niyama, atmaniya. You'd controlled your mind and senses, yadartam, for some particular purpose. Brahma, you'll recall, had asked Kardamuni, you beget children. And Kardamuni, instead of immediately finding a girl and getting some children, he went to perform penance to purify his consciousness. So the Lord knew what the purpose was, and therefore he already arranged to fulfill the desire of the sage. All right. Any comments? Questions? And here there's a nice comment by Vishwanath, Samayogi, that means brought about, accomplished. It's already accomplished by me since you worshipped me alone. You worshipped me, so I arranged for it. If you'd worshipped the demigods, if you'd gone through some material method, then my material energy would have arranged it. But I've arranged it because you approached me. So the result will be better. Just what you get will be better, and it won't be illusory. And you get to come closer to me by worshiping me. So udarati, those who have better intelligence, broader intelligence, will engage in devotional service, whether they have material desires, desire for liberation, no desires. They'll worship Krishna. Saraswati says, it's stated that the Lord never allows anything which will be an impediment to an individual's devotional service. But we see many times devotees fall down because of material desires that are fulfilled. So how do we explain that? One thing is that these, from one point of view, these fulfillments are supplied not by the Lord, but by his material energy. Those who are distracted from the Lord become interested in these impediments. Or from another point of view, it's all for the benefit of the devotee. Even the so-called impediments, even the so-called fall downs or the troubles that a devotee goes through will ultimately purify him. We see that Jamil fell down from Brahminical life and he got involved in so much nasty business. But at the end, he achieved success. And therefore, we're advised not to be too quick to judge a devotee. Even though today he may be in some, he may be even attracted to the material energy or involved in some kind of material pursuit. We haven't seen the whole picture. We haven't seen, just like in a novel, the hero goes through so many. That's how you write a novel, by the way. You have to have all these impediments for the hero to overcome to accomplish whatever the goal is. If there are no impediments, the novel is dull. There have to be impediments. So the impediments also, or even the difficulties ultimately glorify the devotee. We remember how Bill the Mongol, first he was attracted to a prostitute, then he was attracted to someone's wife, and then he put out his eyes. The eyes are giving so much trouble. But he attained perfection. So sometimes, even by the negative features, the devotee who sticks with it, Bhajate Mam and Nipak, is glorified, sadhureva. He's a sadhu. Samyak Vyavasito, because he remains completely fixed in devotional service. Even though so many troubles come, even though he falls down, he remains attached. There's a verse in the 11th chapter, 11th canto, to the effect that even if a devotee can't follow the regulative principles, he should happily go on performing devotional service. He shouldn't give up. He shouldn't just kick himself and say, what's the use? Might as well leave. All right, you're having trouble. Just stay in devotional service and things will come to the right point. I hope that's helpful. Navai Jatu Mishai Vasyat Rajat Yaksha Madarhanam Bhavad Vitesh Vatitaram Mai Sam Vitatmanam. Lord continued, my dear Rishi, O leader of the living entities, for those who serve me in devotion by worshiping me, especially persons like you who've given up everything unto me, there's never any question of frustration. Even if he has some desires, purport, one engaged in the service of the Lord is never frustrated. Those engaged in his service are called sakama and akama. Those who approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead with desires for material enjoyment are called sakama. And those devotees who have no material desires for sense gratification, but serve the Supreme Lord out of spontaneous love for him, are called akama. Sakama devotees are divided into 4 classes: those in distress, those in need of money, inquisitive, and the wise. Someone worships the Supreme Lord because of bodily or mental distress. Someone else worships the Supreme Lord because he's in need of money. Someone else worships the Lord out of inquisitiveness to know him as he is. And someone wants to know the Lord as a philosopher can know him, by the research work of his wisdom. There's no frustration for any of these 4 classes of men. Each is endowed with the desired result of his worship. So Mrisha means frustration, or essentially when things go in vain. What is that in the Bhagavatam at the beginning? Tejo Vadi Mridam Yatavinimayo Yatratri Sargo Mrisha. It is a kind of illusion, hallucination, or here frustration. So we won't have frustration. One may be akama, sakama, but if he's engaged in the service of Krishna very seriously, then he must be considered a devotee. He's very intelligent and broad-minded. So one may worship the Lord for some material desire. One may worship the Lord Artarti Jigyasu Gyani. But none of them are frustrated. Finally, they get the mercy of the Lord. Vishwanath quotes he says, fulfilling your desire will not reduce your worship of me. This is encouraging. It's not that just because we have material desires, we're disqualified, we can't engage. No. Your desire, even the fulfillment of your desire, won't deviate you from worship of me. Rather, you will attain me. Please take courage. Then he quotes, Satyam dishatyartita martito nrinam naivartado yat punarartita yata svayam vidatte pajatam anichchatam ichchapidhanam nijapada pallava. The Lord certainly gives desired objects to devotees who request them, but he does not give in such a way that the devotee will ask again after finishing his enjoyment. He gives his lotus feet, which include all desirables, to those worshippers who do not desire them. So we come to Saraswati's verse, actually, she was alluding to. And usually we hear it where the emphasis is on this point, that the Lord arranges things in such a way that the desires are, that the devotee forgets his desires. But here the context is that the Lord gives the desires. The Lord gives the desires. Don't worry so much. He'll give the desires. And even he'll give them in such a way that they don't have to be an impediment. That's possible for the Lord. Now, sometimes we know, yes, Yaham Manu Granami Harishe Tadanam Shana, the Lord takes everything away. But sometimes he gives, and he gives in such a way that the devotee, all right, I got it. Good, now let's get on with our business of Krishna consciousness. It doesn't become an impediment. It becomes, in one sense, a help. I had some desires. I worshiped the Lord anyway. He fulfilled my desires, so I was able to get on with it, to continue my devotional career. Worshipping me will never be without good results. In the end, I will bestow my abode. Vishnu, I'm paraphrasing. Devotees, such worship among those devotees who've absorbed their minds in me, Sangrabitatmana, such as you, will give results. Saraswati says, Arjuna admitted feeling acute distress before the battle began and asked Krishna to relieve him from this. But Arjuna is an akama devotee. Yeah, he may be akama, he's a spontaneous devotee, but he, from one point of view, yes, artarti. He's in distress, as Gajendra was in distress because the alligator, crocodile, was pulling on and was attacking him. Well, Arjuna was in distress. I have to kill my friends. I have to kill my relatives. Therefore, Yatstrayasya Nishchitam Bruhitam me. He surrendered to Krishna. Karpanya dosho bharata. Jamitam dharmasam. Yeah, I don't know what to do. You please. Nahi prapashyami mama panudya yashchokamuch choshanam indriyat. Avapi vuma vasapatnam ritam. Rajam suranam. Rajam suranam. Ichadi bhatyam. I don't know. It's like a fever. I'm burning up. I won't be able to solve this issue. Nahi prapashyami, I see no way out. Yet chosham, and all my senses and my mind are all perturbed. So shishya steham sharimam, out of distress. Out of distress. Practically, we all seek shelter, usually for one of these reasons. We're in distress. Maybe it's some miserable, we have no money, but artarti, that we're down and out. And so we approach the Lord, please help me. Or we're in frustration, anxiety, perturbation, or we're curious, or we're looking for knowledge. And so we approach the Lord. There's some, we have some impetus. What's in it for me? I have a problem. How am I going to solve this problem? I'll surrender to Krishna. Maybe that's a material desire, but that's the smart thing. The fool, I'll approach the demigods. I'll look through want ads. I'll start a new business. I'll do this. I'll do that. That will solve. I'll get a new wife. That will solve my problem. I'll do some research. But the intelligent person, I'll surrender to Krishna. Buddha says, thank you for sharing that purport from Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur. It's a relief to hear it. Vishwanath's Shakti is quite extraordinary to be able to paraphrase the Lord's in such an understandable and memorable way. And Vijaya Krishna, welcome Vijaya Krishna. If there's never any question of frustration, how do you explain that sometimes it happens that some aspirants do abandon the process? That's their own misfortune. If they'd stuck with it, they wouldn't have been frustrated. They wouldn't have been frustrated. I know one instance where someone was advised that you invest in these stocks and you just keep your money on these stocks. And the advisor was expert. You just stay with these stocks. They may go up, they may go down, but they'll go up. And the persons in charge of the persons who were taking charge, at some point the market went down precipitously and they panicked. And they sold the stocks. And then they went back up again, as predicted. So they had a big loss. They maybe sold them at a lower price. They thought before the distress gets worse, we better sell. So they sold below what they'd gotten them for, and they missed the opportunity for huge profit. So, as the expression goes, don't give up the ship. One should not abandon the service of the Lord. And I may today feel frustrated. I may feel that it's hopeless. I may feel that what's the use? Or I may feel this, or I may feel that. But if I stick to the lotus feet of the Lord, everything will be all right. There'll be no frustration. Moksha I'll even get liberation. So therefore, Ananya Pak, the Lord has such regard for the devotee, even if he has trouble, even if he falls down, even if he loses his reputation, even whatever happens, he sticks to the service of the Lord. Ananya Pak, sadhu. The Lord said, yes, he's a sadhu. Why? He's stuck to me. Others went away. There was some difficulty, they went away. And instead, otherwise, if they'd stuck with it, they would have seen Kaunteya Pratijanihi Name Bhakti Pradashati. You won't be stuck, you'll be okay. I'll take care of you. But they lost faith, they jumped ship. And now where are they? They're in the ocean. So don't do that. All right, we're at the end of our hour. And I wonder who's leading our last kirtan. Hare
Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jai Om Vishnupad Pranamamsa Paripajaka Charja Ashto Tarasati Sri Srimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Sikahoj Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gop Gopinath Sham Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Navadip Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Ki Jai. Gangamai Ki Jai. Jamunamai Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande. Krishna Krishna. Thank you all very much. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, thank you so
Thank you, Maharaj.
much. Hare Krishna. Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai.
Jai,
God Ki Jai.
Jai,
Jayadvaita Maharaj Ki Jai.
Jai,
Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai.
Jai.
Gaur Premanande.
Hari, Hari Bol.
Hari Bol.